Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, the place where high-performing men are empowered to reclaim their home, their health, and their happiness while enhancing their career success. You see, in a world full of noise, burnout, and mediocrity, we believe what's missing is courageous and compassionate leadership in the home, because when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. You see, this isn't just a podcast. It's a movement of men who refuse to settle for less in our families, our focus, and our future. We are curse breakers and we are legacy makers. And I'm your host, Mitchell Osmond, and I'm honored that you have chosen to invest your most valuable asset, which is your time with me today. Now let's get into it. Welcome to the Dad Nation podcast, where high-performing men reclaim their home, their health, and their happiness. I know I say this every episode, but I'm actually very, very excited about today's episode because it is the inaugural episode of the Dad Nation Drop Zone. I know if you're hearing me say that, you're like, what's the Dad Nation Drop Zone? Well, let me tell you. I found out a little while ago that the podcast is growing faster than I realized. You know, I might have shared this before, but I found out that there was over 33,000 monthly listeners and globally rated top 10% podcast. So first of all, thank you to you listening. That's massive, and I value the fact that you're giving me your time and listening, and that tells me that you find this valuable. But the second part of this is I really wanted to think about how can I add even more value to the show. And so I had an idea. I thought, why not bring in some former clients who've become friends, and we could do a little teaching and we could have some group discussion around it and actually some real-time application. So these episodes are intended to be kind of like a fly on the wall of like a group coaching session, if you will. And so with me today, I want to introduce you to Chris and Michael. These two are former clients of mine turned friends, and their lives have been impacted by the coaching and the community and all those things. And so I would love for them to share a little bit, but that's essentially what this is going to be, a once a month. All right, when you see a new podcast episode pop up and it says the Dad Nation Drop Zone, boom, it's going to be us three, and you can expect lots of this. Some coaching, some real-time application, some real-time conversation of like, what does this mean for us as men, husbands, and fathers? So why don't we start this off? Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your journey and then, who you are?
Well, absolutely. Happy to be here, Mitch. I'm excited about this launching of the Drop Zone that we've got going on. So I'm Chris. I've been married for 20 years. Actually, my wife and I just had our 20th anniversary. I have two kids, a 15-year-old girl and a 13-year-old boy that have kept me busy over the years. And then now that they're teenagers, they keep me busy and occupied in different ways. I just started my own companies. Actually, I have two companies that I started 3 years ago. And before that, for about 12 or 15 years, I was in the corporate world and in that demanding lifestyle and not really managing that well between that and, that work-life balance, as they say, and the corporate demands and then my home life, and kind of allowed myself to get a little unbalanced and my priorities to get a little messed up. And then obviously, Mitch, we met and got a lot of that stuff in my life back on track.
Awesome, man. Just tell us real quick. So, we did some coaching together, obviously, and, you've made some big changes, and I think, as we were wrapping up our time together, we reflected on all that you've learned and all that you've applied. And just out of curiosity, man, what are like a couple big things, some big takeaways for you that you were able to implement that made a significant impact in your life?
I would say two things. Number one, being the calmest heartbeat in the room. I applied that to like every conversation I was in, whether it was with my kids or with my wife, or even maybe some stressful situations, just kind of like in the business space, and just learning to react that way no matter what the situation is, which is something that probably genetics and the German and Irish side of me wouldn't naturally allow me to do, because I would just kind of, be real quick to respond. So I think just allowing or giving myself space in between that action and reaction. And then secondly, I'd say I invited my wife and my kids along for the journey. So everything I didn't do outside of them and then said, hey, I'll check in with you in 3 or 4 months and, you let me know how I do. I kind of allowed them to kind of check me a little bit along the way and gave myself grace as well in all those moments. And then also if they were checking me, that gave me an opportunity to have to create that space between the action and the reaction and say, okay, you know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. So I'd say those are the two biggest things for me.
Love that. I love that. That space between the action and the reaction that's originated from Viktor Frankl, who wrote the book The Man's Search for Meaning, and he talks about stimulus and response. And just for you listening, you listeners, and really that's a concept that we teach. Like, there's always an action, something that triggers us, and then our reaction. And sometimes the best thing and the only thing we can do as a man is to increase the space, increase the time between the action and the reaction, or the stimulus and the response. If we can give ourselves a bit of extra time, we can calm down, get into a regulated state, and have a more productive conversation. So it's awesome, Chris. Thank you so much for sharing, man. You're on a powerful journey, and it's been so cool to see how far you've come and how it's impacted your family. Michael, talk to us, man. Who are you? What's a bit of your story, brother?
Awesome. Yeah. Again, super thrilled to be here. I'm Michael. I met Mitch, or was introduced to Mitch. It seems like years ago, but it was literally 6 months ago. In December, we started working with each other. But I I've been married for about 5 years. I have 2 kids. My daughter is 3, and my son will be 2 here in a month or so. And my wife and I are expecting a 3rd child beginning of December. So a little bit different cycle of being a father than Chris. But I experienced just kind of a life of mediocrity for the last few years of you know just being good enough, a good enough husband or a good enough dad just to cross this threshold. My wife didn't deserve that, and so we had a discussion, and I wanted to just become a better man, a better husband, a better businessman. And Mitch's intro to his podcast, as everybody on here always hears, is, I do this for the men, but really I do it for the women and the children, and that really struck a chord with me. And so the last 6 months in my life has been just been a huge transformation. My relationship with my wife is top notch. My relationship with my kids, my family, my friends. I've just kind of overhauled my entire life, and I owe a lot of that to Mitchell and his guidance and leadership.
Awesome, man. I'm glad to hear that it's been had a significant impact in your life. Real quick, man. Same question for you. Like, what would be one or two key takeaways from our time together, and maybe something you would encourage the listeners with today that they could apply?
Man, I have a whole black book of Mitchisms, I call them. So I think it's tough for me to choose two. I think I actually will probably echo the same as Chris's. I kind of always exclude that energy in the room, whether it's friends, business, my family, and kind of coming in a little bit more calm and collected versus, in my Italian heritage, a little bit more irritated. So I think that's one that resonates with me. And I think, Mitch, you asked me this question when we first started our coaching together, like, what have you been tolerating? And I think, giving up some of the good for the great, which is one thing that sticks with me on a daily basis.
I love that. Love that, man. And you're right. That is a powerful question that I was asked at one point in my life. What are you tolerating? And I remember being stopped in my tracks and being like, well, what am I tolerating? There's so many things, whether it's, in my career, in my family, in my fitness, and that could be like, what lies are you tolerating, believing that you're telling yourself, or what issues do you have, like maybe a lack of boundaries in your family or in your work that you're tolerating, or it could be anything. And so, powerful question. So glad it resonated with you, brother. All right, well, let's just jump into it. Actually, you know what, before we do that, Chris, we were talking about the drop zone. We were trying to decide on an idea about what to call it, and you really resonated with this idea of the drop zone, and you did a great job at articulating why you think it was a good phrase for this. Do you want to take a stab at it again and sort of explain the meaning behind it?
Like, obviously we had a list that we were circulating, and it's like, what about this? What about this? But as soon as I saw the phrase drop zone, I just thought about, obviously, combat. I haven't experienced combat, directly, but I just thought about, the guys that go and have to fight and go into combat, they do all this time to prepare. And then it's when it's time to put, pedal to the metal or, just jump in. You take everything that you've prepared, everything that you've practiced, everything that you've learned, and you try to apply it the best you can. And then whether, no matter how the mission goes, whether you're successful or not successful, you take whatever you can learn from it, whether good or bad. So I just thought in the journey that we are as men and as fathers and husbands, and things that we are lacking in, that we know that we need to strengthen as we learn these things and we apply it. That's the attitude and the mentality that we need to have towards it. So I felt like it was a great kind of description of what we were trying to do here.
Love it. Welcome to the Drop Zone. I should hire somebody with like a really deep voice to like do the intro for this, because it'd be cool. But it's not my voice, that's for sure. But love it. Thanks for explaining it, Chris. And I couldn't agree more, man. And it's very mission oriented, right? This is where it begins. Mission central, like in our families, and sometimes the mission goes well, and sometimes the mission does not go well. And that's so true of being a father, being a husband, being a man. Things go well and sometimes they don't. And that's just a part of life and the experience of being a man, husband, father. So thanks for that, brother. My apologies if y'all hear talking about being real and being honest. If you hear my son in the background wailing, my wife is currently trying to put him down, and his nursery is right above my office. So I promise nobody's beating him. He just doesn't want to go to sleep. So let's jump into the content today, because we're going to be talking about sleep, about rest, about how to recover. Because let's be real, fatigue, energy, sleep, all that stuff is a very real part of being a man and a husband. Well, just a human in general. But the big question that I get asked often is, how do I fix my sleep and my energy as a busy dad? And the reality is that most people think that they just need to drink more coffee, or if they just had more time. But really what they actually need is more recovery and intentional movement. And that's counterintuitive for a lot of people. And this is actually, we cover this. I'm creating a course right now called the High Performance Husband. And this is in the 4th phase called Optimize. And this is how we optimize our energy levels. So you're getting a little bit of a snippet into the program. But the reality is you don't rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the level of your recovery, right? And that's the reality. We can have motivation all day, but if we don't have good recovery systems in our life, it really doesn't really help too much. So the reality is you can have a perfect meal plan, you can have the best supplements, you can have a killer training program, even one that I make, but if your sleep is still like garbage, your body's going to be stuck in survival mode. Right? And we know this, like your body stores more fat, you lose muscle, you crave sugar, your drive lowers. There's a statistic out there that says men who sleep just 5 hours have 15% lower testosterone levels the next day. It's crazy. So that's huge, because human growth and testosterone is released while we sleep, right? So the reality is it's not just a luxury, it's a hormonal reset. And when it's broken, so is your metabolism, so is your motivation, and so is your mood. So real time question here. I know, Chris, you and Michael, like you guys are high performing guys. You have demanding careers. Chris running multiple businesses and all that stuff. When you think about real quality sleep, like what's your relationship with sleep like, Chris? Why don't you start?
Well, I'd say now I've made it a priority, whereas, maybe we started working together 4 months ago. So maybe around 4 months ago, because time's up before that, being an entrepreneur. And then of course, the demanding, space in the corporate world. I always felt like that I just, that whole theory of, you'll sleep when you're dead kind of a thing. And there's always stuff to do. And, I want to make sure that I'm performing well, in my businesses and, for other people that I worked with in the corporate space. So I never really prioritized it until recently. And I feel that I'm probably years and years behind in the sleep that I need to be, but I've noticed a big difference in trying to correct some of that stuff, here in the last 4 months or so.
Yeah, and then Michael, I know you've always been like a morning guy, so you get up stupid early, right? And so what does sleep look like for you, man?
Yeah. I would say I have a love-hate relationship with sleep. For the obvious is I actually have very young kids, and bringing a newborn into the world, right? Everyone says that, but I wake up around 4 in the morning most days to get my workout in and have a little bit of me time before my house wakes up. And similar to Chris, right? I've really put a big focus on limiting my time with my phone before bed, hydrating before bed, and then making sure I'm in bed at a great time so I get 6.5, 7 hours of sleep.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always kind of felt like I would say love hate is a good description, because I feel like a lot of my time, I a lot of my life, I felt like sleep is a inconvenience. I'm like, man, if I could figure out how to sleep 4 hours a night, that's like an extra 2, 3, 4 hours of productivity. Have you guys ever felt that way?
Oh yeah, I think if there was like 32 hours in a day, then I would get my full 8 hours of sleep and I would work the other 24. But I don't think it works that way.
That's so good. Yeah, I know. Like, it's definitely love hate. But we're going to talk about today why it's so important. I actually didn't even plan to talk about this today, but as I was reflecting over some of the things I've taught about sleep, I want to bring this up because there's something called chronotypes, and I don't even know if I've taught you guys this actually, but there's a book called The Power of When, and written by Dr. Michael Brews, and it's a brilliant book on sleep and rest. And his whole theory is like there's 4 different categories of people, and your chronotype is sort of in alignment with your circadian rhythm. And there's some people who operate better late during the day, and others who operate better earlier on in the day. And so you may have heard of the phrase like night owl or early bird. He kind of breaks it up into 4 different categories. And it's really about your body's natural preference, right, for sleep and even activity timing. He would say there's a time to take vitamins. There's, given your certain, chronotype, you should be doing creative tasks a certain day, a certain time of the day, reading a certain time of the day, and all that stuff. But the 4 that he explains are lions, number 1, which are the early risers. They are like peak productivity in the morning, right? From like 6 a.m. to noon is huge for them. Bear is the second one, which is most of the population. They kind of follow the sun and sleep rhythmically. The third one are wolves. And this might be more of the combination of what you would, or more of what you've heard described as a night owl. These are creative people typically as well, very focused in the evening, but really like sort of dozy in the mornings. And the fourth one is dolphins. And that's what they would explain as a light sleeper, struggle with consistency, sometimes struggle with insomnia, not being able to sleep late at night. Sometimes can be a little bit neurotic, in those areas. And so, anyways, if you're listening to this and you want to know more about it, you can go to thesleepdoctor.com, and then he's got a quiz there that you can do. And it's super eye-opening, because understanding your chronotype isn't really about labeling yourself. It's actually about aligning your schedule with your biology. So for example, for me, when I understood this, I totally changed my schedule, because for me, past like noon, I would start, because I'm a lion, according to his, chronotypes listing. So by the time I hit noon to like 3, I was starting to tank. But then I was also trying to do all these administrative tasks later in the afternoon. But administrative tasks are draining for me. And so what I did was I went and took all my people things, and because people energize me, and I put those in the afternoon. And then I did my highly mentally taxing tasks first thing in the morning when I had the most energy, right? And so, for example, if you were a lion, just to give you an idea, they should be scheduling workouts and then focus work, tough conversations, critical tasks like that early in the morning. However, wolves do better with late night or late morning starts, and then they're actually better to train and work out in the evenings. Bears typically follow a 9 to 5 rhythm, go to sleep by 10:30, 11 o'clock. And the dolphins are people who can really benefit from evening routines and tech shutdowns and all that kind of stuff, right? So just want to ask you guys, like, as you hear these 4 chronotypes, I don't know if you've ever done the quiz or not, is there anyone that sticks out to you that you might be? I know, just as I'm talking, Michael, I feel like you're probably a textbook lion. But Michael, why don't you start? What do you resonate with?
Yeah, I would say lying for sure. I remember I think a switch happened in my early 20s where I just started waking up super early, and I remember chatting with some of my friends on the weekend. Like I would have worked out, cleaned my condo, got my car washed, grocery shopped, all by like 11:15 in the morning, and a lot of my buddies were just waking up. Um, and now that's flown through to adulthood and fatherhood selfishly because my kids wake up about 6:37. So in my mind, if I can get a lot of my things done early before they're up, I can spend a little bit more time with them during the day and at night. So I'm for sure a lion.
What about you, Chris?
I would say, and I know I'm in control, but I'm a wannabe lion, but I'm definitely a wolf slash dolphin.
Mm.
I thrive at night, like just even in, like working, for the corporate gigs that I've had, and being an entrepreneur, I've just found myself finding that rhythm, at 11, 12, 1 o'clock or at night, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. It's funny, like Michael saying he's up at 4 o'clock. I can just think about all the times that I was up until 4 o'clock. And hadn't gone to sleep yet because I was working. And that's where I just feel like that sweet spot is. But that's where like it just creates a lot of inconsistent sleeping, not going to bed, not getting up at the same time. And then, of course, with kids in school or whatever, it used to be disastrous. So getting that more in alignment and getting more towards the lion-esque side has been beneficial.
Hey, brother, if you are listening to this show, you've most likely built a successful career. You handle pressure, you lead teams, and you get results. But when was the last time you really connected with your wife beyond the calendar, the kids, and the to-do list? Well, if that sounds like you, I have a free gift for you today called the Connection Code. Which are 50 questions to break the silence, spark the fun, and bring the fire back. These questions are going to help you learn what she truly desires from you, to break out of the routine and to rediscover fun, and to spark deeper passion and connection without forcing awkward conversations. Listen, most men assume their wives feel loved, but the best husbands ask great questions and keep the connection alive. So if your date nights feel more like board meetings, and if you've gone from soulmates to roommates, and I want you to download this connection code for free and start the kind of conversations that bring you closer tonight. You can grab your copy at dadnationcode.com/code or hit the link in the show notes below. All right, let's get back into it. Yeah, I think it's funny. The problem comes in when we try to do both, and I've done that. I've been like, well, I'm a lion, but I'm also living like a wolf, so I'm staying up super late, but then I'm still getting up super early in the morning, right? And so understanding, like you had mentioned, Chris, your rhythm and sticking to it, right? So if you're late nights, then you're also late mornings, or if you're early mornings, you're also early nights, so it's interesting. Well, that's good. So a little bit of a context for you guys, your listeners. If you want to learn more about that, I mean, this actually changed how me and my wife communicate because she's a bear. That sounds really bad to say, but her chronotype is a bear. So she doesn't love like a lot of conversation first thing in the morning. I do because I'm a lion and I'm up, 5 o'clock. I'm firing on all cylinders. And so I'm just like peppering her with questions about the budget at like 7 a.m. She's like, get out of my face. What are you talking about? So we actually created optimal windows of time where we have sensitive conversations, like from like 3 to 6 p.m., is that sweet spot for us. So if we need to talk about anything that could go south, we do it when we're both kind of operating well, or like actually it's more like noon to 7. Actually, that's like a good 7-hour window. Past 7 p.m., I'm like, don't talk to me about anything. Like I'm borderline comatose at this point. So it's really important that you kind of really think about what your rhythms are and operate in that. All right, good stuff. So second part here is want to talk about movement and how actually movement is a sleep superpower. Because here's where most people, I was going to say most men, but most people get this backwards. They wait until they have the energy to work out, right? But the truth is movement creates energy, right? Exercise isn't just physical, it's biochemical. And the reality is when you train, even if it's just 20 minutes, your body releases a cocktail of performance boosting neurochemicals. I talked about this on Instagram actually yesterday. after a run. Things like dopamine gets released, right? Which gives you more motivation and more pleasure. Serotonin is released, which increases your mood and your emotional regulation. Endorphins are released, which are natural painkillers and stress reducers. Something called BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That's the brain's miracle grow for focus and memory. And adenosine, which is another big one that helps your body wind down and fall asleep faster later in the day. And so by training, you'll actually sleep better for all those reasons and more. But really what happens is exercise primes your nervous system and stabilizes your circadian rhythm. There was a statistic done from the Sleep Foundation in 2023 saying that studies that show people who move daily fall asleep faster, experience deeper sleep, and report higher energy during the day, right? And so real quick, if I were to ask you guys, Michael, you can go first. What was when you think about movement as medicine, not just for building muscle, but also for energy and clarity and sleep, would you say that that's a big part of it for you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, you hear all of these Instagram influencers or fitness influencers, like all of the different programs you can join, but I love to move first thing in the morning. Like I'm up and I'm like Adam, I'm ready to go. Even on my days off, I go and wake up early and walk. It makes my whole day better. And I've even done a case study where I'll sleep an extra hour and a half versus getting up earlier and walk, and I feel more tired the days I sleep longer versus the days I go work out earlier.
Mm. Yeah, everyone's like, well, I don't have time to work out, or I'm too tired to work out. I'm like, bro, if you want to be less tired, you have to train, it also feels counterintuitive because you physically don't want to, your body's tired. So it's everything in you is wired to not do it. But it's such man, yesterday was crazy. I was like having the worst day. I was pissed off, like everything. We've been having issues with stuff around the house here, like electrical issues, some roof stuff. My dog got sick. Like the Jet was just teething, and it was just like one of those days when like everything was sort of just overwhelming me. I'm like, I just got to get out and run. And and I said it, on the reel that I created, like you have to implement physical adversity. Like if you're facing emotional adversity and mental adversity, you know, everything in you wants to just make it all easy and not push yourself. But actually, the best thing you can do when you're facing pressure like that is apply physical pressure, right? Challenging yourself physically because of the neurochemicals that are released. And this is not just opinions, this is actually neuroscience, right? So, Chris, tell us a little bit, real quick, like, have you experienced that to be true as well? I mean, I know you've been on a journey with sleep, switching your schedule around and the eating and all that stuff, but what does it look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, at first I was trying to do it all at once. I was like, yeah, I'm going to get up early and completely flip flop my sleep schedule and all that stuff and work out. And it ended up being with the kids, taking the kids to school and things. It wasn't as successful as I would have liked it to be. But definitely I notice that like when I do work out or at least get out there for a walk, right now in Florida, it's 150 degrees. So it's difficult to go out and walk in the afternoon. So like when I do go out there in the mornings, I just feel like a big difference just throughout the day. And then I do notice that I do sleep better at night when I do go to bed. So it's just, for me, it's just making sure that I'm consistent with it, but knowing that it is, the proof is in the pudding and it does work.
Hmm. I heard that there's like a record heat in Tampa Bay, like the highest recorded temperature in history or something.
Yeah, and the heat index all throughout Florida right now is crazy. I mean, we're like the actual temperatures are in the low hundreds, and then it feels like 112 to 120. So this is where the point, like where I say, I live in Florida, and the only way that I can live here is because we have the coastal breeze. Well, that doesn't help anymore during this time. It's still hot.
Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It'll be over. It'll be over in 3 weeks.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, hey, let's talk about. Let's move on. Talk to a little bit about really what's going wrong, because we talked about the importance of it. We talked about our wiring, all that stuff. Now we want to talk about what's actually wrecking our sleep. So there's 5 common habits that are secretly sabotaging your energy. All right. Number one, and this is common in every single person I think I've ever coached, is your screen time before bed. Okay. And that's because your screens release something called a blue light technology, or blue light images that suppress melatonin by 30 to 50%. Melatonin is your sleep hormone. And if your melatonin is suppressed, then you find it difficult to have a good rest. I was looking up looking up a statistic a little while ago, and I read that 68% of Americans use screens within 30 minutes of sleep. Now, recently I actually read another one that updated that as of 2024, and they say 90% of Americans use screens within 30 minutes of going to sleep, which is wild, right? When you think about it. I mean, I do that too from time to time, and I'm trying to be better at it, but that's a big sabotage right there. The second one is caffeine after 2 p.m. Another one that I struggle with because I'm like, oh man, by 2 I'm like trying to get my second wind. But the half-life of coffee is long, and so the reality is that coffee you're drinking at 3 p.m., the caffeine is still in your system at 10 p.m. And I used to be crushing lattes at like 10 p.m. and I'd say, well, I could still go to sleep. But you may be sleeping, but it's not going to be a quality rest, right? Third one is late night eating or late night drinking. Both of these fragment your sleep and spike your cortisol levels, which is wild. Fourth one is inconsistent sleep schedules. We talked a little bit about this, Chris, but shifting your bedtime by even an hour and a half disrupts your recovery rhythm. Our body craves rhythm, so it's important. It's even like if you like wake up early in the week during the weekdays and you sleep in a bunch in the weekends, it really doesn't set you up for success because your body's circadian rhythm is thrown off, right? So I would say find a day or find a time of day that you can get up every day at the same time ish, within, a 30-minute window. It's going to serve you much better. And the fifth one is an overstimulated nervous system. And really, that's sort of a combination of a bunch of the stuff that I was just talking about. There's too much mental noise, whether it's scrolling, task switching, emails, like work talk, keeping your brain stuck in like on mode, right? And so just thinking through that, for me, I think the screens before bed, the snacking before I go to sleep, even though they're healthy, clean snacks, it's engaging my digestive system. And then for me, I think the caffeine, those three are the ones that I struggle with the most. But when you hear that, which of those are hitting you hardest right now? And what's one that you think you need to like change or tweak? Go ahead, Chris.
I think for me, there was a time I was the Michael Jordan at all 5 of these at the same time. But I think, I made a promise to myself. Just screens was a big one for me, checking emails and the overstimulation, late at night, just catching up on news, text messages or whatever. So I made a promise to myself to not have any screens at least an hour before bedtime, if not more. And been holding true to that, the best that I can. Then, of course, the inconsistent bedtimes. Still struggle with that because you got deadlines and all that stuff. We all have that kind of stuff. So it's just managing that the best as possible.
Yeah, man, I hear that, man. Michael, what about you?
I would say my top 2 would be the screen time for sure, right? Like having enough time in the day to work, spend with your family, email, social media. So for sure at night, and my wife and I have been working very hard to, once my daughter goes to sleep at 8, put our phones down and read or do something together. So we've been working hard on that one. I would say the second is food. Italians are big on our food. Having young kids, right? Like I don't like when they waste food, so I'll finish a snack that they're eating. Or having a pregnant wife for basically the last 3.5 years, lots of cravings going on in my house, and I have a tough time saying no when there's something good in front of me. So those 2 are really, really tough for me.
Sympathy weight, I think they call that, right?
Well, we had a conversation yesterday, and she asked if I'd be willing to gain some weight because she is, and I said absolutely not. So,
oh, wow, I love that. And you said absolutely not.
I said absolutely not.
Hey, brother, does this sound familiar to you? Maybe you're powerful at work, you're respected, you're competent, you're driven, but when you walk through the door at home, you feel like a stranger. Maybe your marriage feels distant. Maybe your temper's shorter, your body's softer, and you've been stuck in this loop where you're showing up for everyone except for the people that matter the most. I know that pain because I lived it. And that's why I created the Dad Nation Coalition, which is a 1-year high-level coaching community for career-driven men who are done settling for success in only one area of their life. Inside the coalition, we don't just talk about growth, we build it. You will create a life that your wife wants to be a part of. You'll become a father your kids look up to. You'll wake up proud of the man staring back at you in the mirror. And here's the best part, you won't do it alone. You'll be surrounded by a brotherhood of men who will challenge your excuses, sharpen your edge, and celebrate your wins like family. In the DNC, you're going to get 12 months of bi-weekly coaching calls with me and the other members of the coalition. You're going to get a customized fitness and nutrition plan designed for your specific goals, and exclusive access to my flagship trilogy called The High Performance Husband. You're going to get a one-to-one mastermind with me where we build your blueprint for success in every area. And lastly, an invitation to our exclusive annual mastermind and retreat. So if you're ready to rebuild your body, reignite your marriage, and rise up as a high-performance man of purpose, then apply today. Go to dadnationco.com/DNC or hit the link in the show notes below. All right, now let's get back into it. One of my buddies, he was eating a bag of chips like later on at night, and we were chatting about it, and he was like, "No, man, this is health food." I said, "Oh, yeah, that was Cheetos health food?" He's like, "Yeah, it's mental health food. It's good for my mind, you know. It helps me feel better." I'm like, "Oh, okay, good. You keep rolling with that." Awesome. Okay, let's talk a little bit about 4 things that you can do. You can call this your sleep success stack, if you like acronyms, triple S. And then we're going to talk about a morning ritual. So 2 ways. Something that's going to set you up for success in the night, and then something that's going to set you up for success in the mornings. Okay, we'll start from the night. And again, this is going to be stuff that I'm teaching in the course as well, which is kind of cool. But the first step is to move. And as we talked about, obviously we've laid it out. Physical exercise is huge, and it doesn't have to be going to the gym for a 2-hour weight training session. It could literally just be going for a 20-minute walk, right? But 20 to 30 minutes of movement can regulate your energy, your mood, and your sleep. And we know that movement can, especially even like after eating, like a family walk after dinner, helps digestion, lowers cortisol, triggers parasympathetic recovery. You think about it like, an evening walk after dinner is like a triple threat, man. You get quality time with your family, right? You get an exercise, you're priming yourself for sleep, all of those different things. It helps your digestive. So massive thing that you're really winning on all sides if you could do that. So number 1, move every day. Number 2 is what I call the 3-2-1 rule. Very simple. 3 hours before bed, stop eating. 2 hours before bed, stop drinking. And 1 hour before bed, turn the screens off. If you did nothing else, if you took no action outside of this episode other than implementing the 3-2-1 rule, it would change the game for you in your sleep and your recovery, because these things are the things that causes so many problems. You're not going to be getting up to use the bathroom as much if you're not drinking before you go to bed. Your digestive system's not going to be on overdrive while you're trying to sleep. And then obviously your melatonin levels are not suppressed by being on your phone, so you have a better sleep. Like I said, this overall lowers your cortisol and helps improve melatonin production, all that stuff. Number 3, set a wind down ritual, because you don't fall asleep, you prepare for it, right? Now this can look different for everybody, but here are some ideas, right? This is something I learned actually fairly recently. Dimming the lights at night is such an effective way, because especially the bright like fluorescent lights, again, it's telling your brain this is working time. It's all that stuff. Interesting fact here while I'm here. Did you know that before the light bulb was invented, this is crazy. I think you're laughing, Michael, because I told you, but before the light bulb was invented, the average human slept 11 hours a day. Did you know that, Chris?
I think I had read that somewhere, but I chose not to believe it, but it makes sense.
Yeah, because if there's no light, if there's no light bulbs, no electricity, you can't work, right? Yeah, everything's going by candlelight, And so it was like wow, that's crazy how unproductive. My first thought was, how unproductive were we back then? But it tells us a little bit about how we're, kind of wired when it comes to that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So dimming the lights before you go to bed, like 3 hours before, doing some light stretching, right? It's huge. Reading, remember, not scrolling, reading an actual OG book with boring paper, journaling or brain dumping, right? And I talked about something called the Power Hour a couple episodes ago when I think it was called the Gap Trap. Power Hour journaling, it's huge, right? To spend the last 60 minutes of your day writing down 3 wins from the day and 3 wins you're going to look for tomorrow, and practicing some gratitude. And just different like herbal teas and stuff that you can drink, all that kind of stuff. So a little statistic I found as I was researching this is that a consistent nighttime routine reduces time to sleep by 54%. Just wild when you think about how long it takes you. This would be good for you, Chris. If you have a hard time falling asleep, reducing your time to sleep by 54% by simply having a wind down ritual. Couple things, and the fourth step here is to optimize your environment. So something as simple as keeping your room 2 to 3 degrees cooler than the rest of the day. So 65 degrees Fahrenheit for you Americans, or like, what is that, 17 degrees Celsius for you Canadians? I don't know how the translation works. But keeping it cool and dark and quiet. No phone in the bedroom, or keeping it at least an arm's length away from you. Put it in the bathroom to charge it, okay? And then it's things like blackout drapes were the best thing me and my wife put in our bedroom. It's amazing. And then a white noise machine can help in a significant way. So as I'm talking about this stuff for you guys, man, like real-time application, like what are you doing any of these? And it's fine if you're doing absolutely none of them. But if there are things that you're hearing, are there things that you're like, man, I should do that, or I feel like that would help me? Michael, why don't you jump in?
Yeah, my wife and I are very routine. So our family makes fun of us, but we'll get the kids' clothes ready the night before and put them downstairs, so we don't have to worry about that in the morning. So following that same routine every night, dinner, we definitely go on a family walk. In the 4 months we can do that because we're the opposite weather of Florida, and it's usually pretty cold and nasty out in Chicago. But that movement, you know, is really good for us, and it's some good family time, as you mentioned. We're really trying to, again, kind of limit the screens at the end of the night. So once my daughter goes to bed, whoever is a flavor of the night, we call it, whoever my daughter wants, to put her down, the other will finish cleaning up downstairs, and by that time we'll connect, and that's really the only time all day we will have together. So instead of kind of like a power hour of like journaling or things like that, we use it just to connect about the day, the week, the next day. Obviously I said kind of the food, the water, and then the screens is the biggest thing. We're trying to read. I've read 2 books in the last month and a half, which has been more than 25 years. So it's we're trending in the right direction.
I love that. Oh, it's so good, man. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, obviously I mentioned earlier the phone thing. I've been charging it in the bathroom, so it's like, out of sight, out of mind. So that's kind of been helpful. And then if I'm in a really deep sleep when my alarm goes off, I feel like I have to rush out of bed, and then you've got that first 30 seconds of like trying to figure out where you are and all that. But there's that. Then got to try to blackout drapes. I've heard that that's very helpful. We haven't done that yet. And then the reading that I do or have been doing, I've been trying to do at night as well. So it like kind of slows the brain down, or you're just intentional about that, cuts out all the other noise or limits the distractions from other stuff too. And I'm just focusing on that. So I know I'm working myself to the point where I can get more into that routine, and then that is just solid as can be.
Yeah, I love that. It's it's huge. What you're priming your mind with before you go to sleep is massive. The gatekeeper to the subconscious mind opens the gate when you go to sleep, and that's when it really kicks into high gear. So what you're planting in your mind before you go to sleep is literally forming your beliefs the next day. So it's really important that people don't miss that. Another thing about what happens in the brain, and I think I've talked about this in the earlier episodes, but when you sleep, your brain kind of goes on this laundry cycle, if you will, and it actually cleans out dead cells and things like that, in your brain cells. And it's actually called amyloid beta. If you want to Google it, look it up. But people who have suffered with early onset of Alzheimer's have an abundance of amyloid beta buildup in their brain. And so that's the thing. One of the biggest preventers of Alzheimer's is getting quality sleep and having a lower sugar diet. Random sidebar. But I think that's so fascinating. And when you're not sleeping enough, not only are you not doing your body a good service, your brain is actually suffering as well, because that's precious time to clean itself. It's kind of wild when you think about it that way. Okay. Good stuff that we can take action on. So now I want to move to the mornings. Okay. We talked about how to have a great night's sleep. Now, the mornings, we're going to do something called the morning stack. Okay. This is a 10-minute protocol. I haven't taught you guys this because I literally just created it for the course, the High Performance Husband. So it's 10 minutes every morning, and it's 5 simple steps. Okay. This is a plug and play routine. And if you're listening, grab your pen or drop a bookmark here or whatever you do on the platform that you're listening to. But number one is to hydrate. 1 minute, okay? 16 to 20 ounces of water. If you want to get real bougie, you can put a pinch of sea salt and a squeeze of lemon in there. But the reason why we hydrate the very first thing in the morning is because you're dehydrated after 6 to 8 hours of sleep. And so this combination of the water and a bit of lemon and sea salt, it rehydrates you, it replenishes you, and replenishes your electrolytes and jumpstarts your digestive system. Number one. And it takes 1 minute. Okay. Now we're moving on to minute number 2. So if you are in sunny Florida, you can do this. Or if you're in cold, dark Chicago or cold, dark Calgary like me, you might not be able to do this, but you can get a happy lamp. But we're talking about sunlight. Okay. So get outside within 30 minutes of waking, or using a light like a happy lamp or a light box, because the sunlight, or the simulated sunlight, anchors your circadian rhythm. Okay. Regulates your sleep wake cycle and triggers a natural dopamine hit. Even just, there's a statistic from Dr. Andrew Huberman from Stanford. He's got his own podcast. He says that just 2 to 10 minutes of morning sunlight can suppress melatonin levels and elevate alertness for hours throughout the day, which is pretty key. So that's 2 minutes. Now you're on a minute 4. Okay. So movement. Take 3 minutes to do this. This is just light exercise. Body weight movements. So maybe you're brewing some coffee. This is a great time to do this. You turn on the kettle, boil some water, or whatever it looks like for you. Doing some jumping jacks, some push-ups, arm swings, air squats, you name it, just to get the body moving. This increases lymphatic flow, improves mobility, and tells your nervous system it's time to wake up. All right. And that's just 3 minutes. Like, what's that? 60, 90, 120 seconds? No, 100 and, yeah. My math is terrible. 160 seconds. Whatever 3 minutes is, do it. Do it for that amount of time.
180.
Sure. 100. There you go. 180. I'm going to throw a really good number later for seconds. That's going to redeem this. Number 4 is mindset activation. So again, this is like breathing, regulating yourself, right? And if you can Google this if you want, but it's just box breathing or a 4-7-8 breath work. Taking a quick moment to write down 3 things you're grateful for first thing in the morning. Maybe if you're a person of faith, you want to read the Bible or read a scripture or devotional, or whatever that looks like for you, to really set your mind straight. This practices regulating your emotional state. It promotes optimism, your gratitude, reduces cortisol levels before you even look at your email or social media, right? This is called, this would be the prime time. And the last thing you would do is write down your top 3 wins for the day. Because remember, if you did the power hour exercise the night before, maybe you wrote down 3 exercises or 3 wins that you're looking for. Well, today you're going to rewrite those, and it's going to be, again, you're reminding your subconscious mind to go to work to help you get these wins. Powerful stuff. And you might ask yourself, if I only accomplished 3 things today, what would those 3 things need to be? And again, this allows us to stop holding ourselves to some crazy high standard. And you set off your day saying, I want to do 3 things. And then that night when you go to bed and you document and you write down the 3 wins, you're like, yeah, I did the 3 things that I said I wanted to do. And that's great for building confidence and all those different things. The reality is if you want a stronger body, a better marriage, sharper business, you need to start with the first 600 seconds. You like that, Chris? Told you I'd redeem it. 600 seconds is 10 minutes.
Well, how many minutes? Yeah, that's okay. That's division now.
If you own the morning, the rest will follow. So, for me, this is something, if I'm being honest, just in the last couple of minutes here, this is something I've always struggled with, because I feel like, they say like an introvert and an extrovert, there's like an ambivert, which is the both of us, or both, combined. I feel like I'm a ambivert in the sense of like my chronotype or my sleep schedule, because I get super focused in the evenings, and even though I don't necessarily operate well late at night, if I'm not careful, I can get sucked into it, right? Just like real quick for you guys, like what are a couple actionable takeaways that you're going to take from this conversation and start to implement moving forward? Or what are some things that you've learned today that you think I should start doing that?
I think for me, it's always a good reminder to just really try to understand that, your body needs sleep to recover. But I think one of the biggest things for me that needs to be a constant reminder is just how you're rewiring that subconscious part of your brain at night, filling it with gratitude. The Power Hour, I listened to that episode. Actually, I think it was yesterday again, which the gap and the gain, thing has been hitting me hard lately. So trying to implement that into my lifestyle is going to be the key thing that I'm gonna take away and I'm gonna run with.
Love it. What about you, Michael?
I just think implementing that 3-2-1 every night. I definitely follow that in some form or fashion. The first, 6 minutes when I wake up, I have my Hydro jug, which I chug every morning. Obviously, I wake up way earlier than the sun comes up, so I have to wait a bit to get some sunlight. But it's the night before, just putting that routine into play. And again, life gets in the way, especially with young kids and sleep regressions. But as much as I can, just focusing on that 3-2-1 and setting my night up for success.
Amazing. And as you're listening, I think sometimes I can come off as like, you got to do all these different things. So I say all of this with the giant caveat that we're human beings. We're not robots, right? We have young kids. We've got old kids. Life throws us curveballs. And so the goal here is consistency over intensity. And I know you both have heard me say this a million times over. The thing is we got to zoom out and then realize over the course of, the year, how have we been consistent? And realistically, consistency is 1 week you nail it, the next week maybe you crap the bed a couple days of the week or whatever, but overall, you're doing well. And so my big encouragement to you listening today is, what things can you take from this? And remember to have grace with yourself. We're not asking for perfection, and you shouldn't ask for perfection from yourself. But what you want to do is really strive for consistency as often as possible, and have grace for yourself when life throws you curveballs, and that's totally fine. Like Chris said, you got a big deadline coming up. You're gonna have to burn the candle for a little bit on both ends, and that's fine. But how are you recovering? And so I hope you all hear me say that. And that wraps up our conversation today on sleep and rest and recovery and how we can avoid burnout. But listen, thank you for tuning in to the Dad Nation podcast and this first episode of the Drop Zone. I hope you have enjoyed it, and we will catch you soon. Thank you for tuning into the Dad Nation podcast today. Listen, if today's conversation challenged you, if it encouraged you or helped you level up in any area of your life, would you do me a favor? Take 60 seconds to rate and review the show on whatever platform you're listening on. This helps us reach more men who need to hear this message. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Dad Nation YouTube channel, where you're going to find full episodes, clips, and exclusive content designed to help you win at home just like you do at work. Remember, your family does not need perfection. They need your presence. Your leadership matters. So keep showing up, keep leveling up, and never forget, when the dad gets better, the whole family wins. We'll see you next time.